Someone is manipulating you right now, and you're smiling at them. This is the nature of silent destruction. It leaves zero physical evidence and no paper trail. By the time you realize something's wrong, the damage is already done, and you look like the crazy one for even bringing it up. Look at your typical American office. Your manager smoothly takes credit for your project during the Monday morning meeting, then casually shifts the blame onto you the second a client complains. You spend your entire week walking on eggshells, wondering why you feel exhausted when everything looks fine on paper. This person is actively managing your perception of reality. They decide what's true and what isn't, slowly replacing your own judgment with a version of events that serves them. Without visible wounds, you end up becoming your own warden. You're playing a high-stakes game you don't even know exists, and nobody warned you about this. But this is just the surface. What's underneath is darker. Manipulators use covert gaslighting as a calculated tool to bend your reality until it snaps. Philip Zimbardo's research in the Lucifer effect shows how normal environments are structurally engineered to create compliance. People don't just wake up one day and decide to submit to an abuser. The environment is slowly tilted until submission feels like the only logical choice. The Milgram experiment proved our brains are hardwired to outsource our sense of right and wrong to a perceived authority. A narcissist hacks this hardwiring, positioning themselves as the only source of truth in your life. You see it in social circles across the US every day. You confront a friend about a lie, and they hit you with a calm, flat, "I never said that, you're remembering it wrong." They do it in front of others so convincingly that you start to distrust your own memory. Gaslighting forces you to outsource your sanity to the manipulator. Once they own your perception, they own the relationship. Here's where it gets dark. And the mechanism behind this? Nobody's talking about it. This graph tracks emotional withholding. Silence is behavioral punishment. As they go cold, your emotional state drops, feeding their control. This pairs with identity erosion, a drip of micro-criticisms, like, "You look okay for someone who doesn't hit the gym," erases your original personality. This creates a trauma bond. Your brain becomes addicted to the cycle of intermittent reinforcement, the long stretches of punishment followed by a tiny, rare emotional reward. Stop. Think about who does this to you right now. Victims stay because their identity has been dismantled and replaced by the narcissist's psychological architecture. Now that you see the damage, let me show you the exact steps to flip this power dynamic. Reclaiming your life requires a calculated transfer of power straight out of Robert Greene's playbook. If you apply the principles of Robert Cialdini or Machiavelli, the solution is calculated detachment. You stop being a source of emotional data for the manipulator. To cut off their narcissistic supply, you must neutralize your visible emotional reactions. When they provoke you or try to start a fight, you give them nothing. No defense, no anger, no explanation. Just a blank, polite stare. Without emotional fuel to burn, the manipulator's reality-bending machinery jams. They lose their leverage because they can no longer predict or trigger your behavior. Removing your reaction flips the power dynamic. You transform an invisible trap into a transparent game that you are now choosing not to play. Most people will never know this. You do now. By learning these mechanisms, you've started identifying the invisible tactics that most of society misses. You can't unsee these patterns anymore. You have the knowledge. The question is whether you have the discipline to use it. The game was always happening. Now you know the rules.